episode 2. We made 2 episodes, guys. It's a proper success. 2, the Future Proof Knowledge podcast. My name is Alan O'Donoghue, and I am joined by my partners in crime, Mr. J. Sean Mills, Ms. Lisa Fannin, and the wonderful Olive Hickmott. How have you guys all been keeping since last week?
Doing good.
Fabulous.
Excellent.
All good.
But this week, we are absolutely blessed to be joined by Lisa Gilmartin and Fiona Sinnott from SnugsHQ.com. And how are you both doing today in this lovely warm day today?
Great, yeah, it's a fabulous day. Very nice, very warm.
Yeah, we're doing good. Yeah, we're delighted to be here. Loved last week's podcast.
Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
That was all down to Olive. It's always down to Olive. Like, she's the glue that keeps us all together. But today, what we're going to be chatting a little bit about is the importance of play in education. And for both of you, it's great to have people with so much experience. Fiona, you've been a secondary school teacher, and Lisa, you've been a special needs assistant as well. So you guys see it from a very different perspective that maybe us as parents would have, or those of us who are facilitators in out of traditional education settings. So it's going to be great to kind of dig into the weeds and get a good picture of your story first and foremost, but also what you see in terms of young people's development and how things have changed over the last few years. But I suppose let's get a bit of a snapshot. And before we went live, Jason, I'm going to actually come to you first. And you were talking about the importance of play for your son in education. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what that experience has been like for you as a dad and your son, and how you've used technology and how you've used different mechanisms to get your son into a learning state so that he can actually gain some more knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. So my son is 12 years old now. He has autism. He's nonverbal. In the early days, when he was first diagnosed and the couple of years after that, it was very difficult, and it was a very hard code to crack. My son in particular, he didn't want to be around people. So we made him a great big playroom, gave him all the toys in there. And when we would go in there, he would just kind of guide us out because he wanted his own space to be by himself. He can interact with his toys by himself. And he was with that. But it wasn't helping with any education. So being able to introduce technology into it was kind of the game changer, because then it was something that he couldn't use just solely by himself. He needed that extra help to show him or to be able to visualize what you're doing so he can take over. So I found that using technology and play at the same time was the easiest way to cut through and get into education, and also have fun at the same time. Without play involved, it would just be a constant battle all the time. It would feel like tasks and duties that he has to do, and for his mind, tasks and duties aren't things that he really falls in line with. So tricking him and making things fun, and also using technology, that's his main toy and source of communication, has been invaluable. And I don't think without play we would have the success, and he wouldn't have developed as much as he has today. Well, I say without play, without all the great therapies that he's had throughout the years, and ABA therapy and the play involved. So yeah, I really think that play is the absolute key tied with technology for my son, and I believe that would be the same case for lots of children on the spectrum, especially neurodiverse children who are nonverbal, because being able to express what you want is so much harder when you don't have a voice.
Absolutely. That's really, really important. And Lisa G, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
You know, from your perspective as a special needs assistant, so you're working directly in the classroom with these young people who have those additional needs. And so
Yeah.
I have a bit of an understanding of what happens and what a special education teacher does. But do you want to give us a bit of an overview of what you might be doing, and what are some of the challenges you would see the young people that you work with face on a daily basis in terms of their education?
Yeah. So a special needs assistant, I suppose, works alongside a teacher, and we would help to implement an IEP, which obviously, is an individual education program for that child. And what we would do is we would work one-to-one or 1 to 2 or 3, depending on the room you're in, the needs in that room. But as Jay Sean was saying, play for us is major. I would always say play is connection. So communication is, like, speaking a language is only a very small part of communication. So we know that our body language is communication, our facial, expressions, all those things have communication. And play for me is so important, because when I am working with a child, especially a child who's nonverbal, pre-verbal, who kind of doesn't always like to be around other people as well, it's finding that thing that they like to play with, or they like to do, or maybe that game on the technology that we could do together, something that, can help learn, help communicate. So every child is different. So every situation is different. So I could walk into one classroom and I could do something completely different than I did in the last classroom. But we're really there to help support the child's learning in whichever way that is. If it's with kind of social, making friends, enjoying the space better, making the most out of the classroom school setting, that's what it is. If it's working on the curriculum, that's what it is. It all just depends on the child. It's so individual. But for me, play is the main. It's the connection. I say there's no point in trying to implement any kind of learning around a curriculum if the connection isn't there. There's just no point, especially with neurodiverse learners, and especially with children who don't, always have that little bit of wariness around them when they're meeting new people or in their new environments. So, the play and the connection is the big part, definitely.
Yeah, and there's so little that they can control around the environment that they're in. So they have to go to school. They have to be in the particular classroom that they're, assigned to. So, they have no input into, well, not that they know, but thanks to working with the likes of you, they do have a bit of an input. They can talk about what it's like for them, and you can kind of maneuver them. But Fiona, I'm going to come to you. And just before I do, I want to welcome Tana to her first podcast. Tana is part of our team as well with Future Proof Knowledge. So welcome, Tana. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, Fiona, so coming to you, like, I suppose being a secondary school teacher, there is a lot of pressure on you to deliver a curriculum to a class of anywhere probably between 25 and 35 students, depending, which is a huge amount of pressure. So there's probably not a huge amount of room for you to be able to work individually with young people and try and see, okay, well, this one needs play. But I'm assuming you probably do your best. But has the introduction of special education teachers been a big support to you guys as teachers, so that that these young people are being supported in a way that it works for them best?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there could be very differing levels in any sort of a class, whether it's in a first year class or a 6th-year class. So you really have to kind of understand the needs of the class from the very beginning, and try and work to each of the needs. And everyone is going to learn slightly different. I think, like, play is really important, even at secondary level. Like, teens, they when they explore or they try and understand themselves, it helps them build their confidence. So play can be really, really helpful in role plays. I would use a lot of role plays in my class. So I teach business, is my main subject. So role playing helps people get into that situation where, they're involved, or they're the interviewer, or they're the employee, or there's a conflict, or, and they love that, and they kind of understand what's happening there. Or, it also helps collaborate, maybe, or cooperative learning between the students. So someone might be, amazing at researching, and they could be the researcher of the group. And then someone else might be the checker, and someone else does the drawing of the poster, and everybody feels involved, but everyone's working to their own strengths, and it doesn't feel like a chalk and talk style task. Now, that's not said that's not still relevant. You said we do have a curriculum to meet, which we do in a lot of, for all of our subjects. However, we have to look at the individual education plans for the students and try and incorporate in the classroom. So play works really well for that. When you can incorporate it into a lesson, it's not always readily available to put into every lesson, but I would try and put some element. We have hour-long lessons now. We've moved from 40 minutes to hour-long. So I always try and incorporate a movement break, because students need that. An hour is very long to try and concentrate. So you can mix it up with a bit of a fun element. I always have a little beanbag in my class as well, and it could be that you're doing different kind of questionings with different students, but you're pulling on their strengths as well. You're not going to ask a very difficult question to somebody who probably won't get the answer. You're trying to encourage the students to have the confidence in their own abilities. So there's lots of different methods that can be used, and technology has been fantastic in that as well, in allowing people to express themselves or show their skills. And we would use it quite a bit in school, but not we're not yet a device school. So
okay. And I think I love the sound of that business class, because but that replicates real life. So like each of us involved in Future Proof Knowledge, we're all bringing different skills to the table. I'm not creative, so what's the point in me trying to be creative? Tana's the creative one, so she's the one that looks after all the creativity, because that's her strength versus it's not my strength. Still trying to figure out what my strengths are. But Olive, I think coming to you, when we look at the non-traditional education sector and your experience of working with young people who have maybe struggled in the traditional environment, you and I have been having a lot of conversations over the last few weeks about those early years and the importance of play in helping those young people to build a solid foundation of I can learn, and a belief system that they can actually take on board what's being presented to them. So talk to us a little bit about where you're seeing the need for improvement, and how those of us working in that outside of education, or not outside of traditional education, can support what's happening within the traditional education structures.
Thank you for that. Heather. Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, I was on mute. I have been coaching students one-on-one and teaching teachers for the last 25 years to learn more about how children learn visually. And although we say we have multi-sensory classrooms, actually it's not quite like that, because most of the experience of teachers is about teaching visually, like showing pictures, showing graphs and things like that. It's not about learning what's going on in their head and how they are learning visually. So that's where I've been focused. And as I say, I've been teaching children for so long individually. But what I decided to do about 6 months ago was to look at early years, because we were teaching the students in primary and secondary, and even adults, the same sort of things. And I'm going, well, actually, we could be helping children learn this type of stuff through play in early years. So that's where I'm focused now, which is a completely different place for me. But I've learned a lot about play, I must admit, that I didn't know before. And I just find that it's more and more interesting what you can, for example, I was watching a little girl the other day, and she had a card, sort of long card like that sort of thing. And it had a picture on one corner, and it had a stencil of the letters on the rest of the card. So it was like a cat or something. and there was a stencil of CAT. And so I was just standing there watching her, and she got this toy out, and it was the first time she played with it, and nobody told her what to do. And so there was another couple of people on the table with her. So she started handing out these cards, there were lots of them, to some of the other people on the table. And I'm just watching, and I'm going, are we going to explain this to her at all? Because my history would be, more teacher-led. And she then went, right, you've all got the card, and then she threw all the letters into the middle between them, and then she started putting one letter on her card, and then it was somebody else's turn to put one letter on their card, etc., around the group. So she did that for a couple of times, and then she suddenly went, I think you should have 2 cards. So everybody had 2 cards, right? Fine. And so they carried on like this, and then she went, it would be much easier. These were all lowercase letters. It would be much easier if we stacked up the lowercase letters on top of each other so we could find them quicker. I'm going, yes. So all the A's were stacked up on top of the A's, and all the T's were stacked up on top of the T's. And sure enough, they were all finding the letters quicker. And then her final piece of creativity was to say, there's 2 letters there, which is an N. I needed 1 on my card, and I want to find who else needed an N. So she was then sharing and helping other people to improve. And I just thought it was magic, really. And if I hadn't done so much reading about play, I wouldn't have noticed. That's the key thing. I just noticed, I was just observing, and I was going, what is going on for this little girl? And so that's my story.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And we as adults, I think, can learn so much from children, but yet we're so used to being in that role of we have to give knowledge and information to you that we will correct them if they're telling us a story. And no, that elephants are grey, they're not multicolored. If they're telling a story about a multicolored elephant, well, what does it matter? Like I said before, they're not going to grow up thinking, well, elephants are multicolored. You know what I mean? They're not going to be 40 walking around.
They're going to figure that out.
Yeah. So, allowing that creativity. But Tana, I want to come to you because like I alluded to earlier on, you're a very creative person. And I'd love to get your experience for how your creativity was encouraged or discouraged when you were in school. Like, was it kind of, oh, Tana's the creative one, let's just kind of encourage her to do that? Or was it the other way around? You need to learn your mathematics. That's way more important than the creativity. What was your experience?
Very encouraged.
It was very encouraged.
I was very encouraged. So I don't think I was ever not, because mine was, I think that's why I was so drawn to you, because I have seen the crumbling of education, especially here in Texas, because I was very, I benefited a lot from education, how I was brought up. And I was listening to the podcast, the first podcast, and I heard how y'all struggled, and I was just like, oh, I felt so bad because I had a pretty good one, and I was like, oh no, and my situation was a little different, and I got my GED, but so. I felt bad because I took advantage of it, but I've seen how our education has, really faltered and gone down. So, and it's, just so bad for our children. But I was encouraged to, I had a gate art class when I was in like 6th grade. My mother took me to high school because I was in gate. a GATE art class, and I was with high schoolers.
So what's a
So
GATE art class? Just describe that.
gifted and talented.
Okay.
So we had that here in Texas. But I mean, as y'all know, we're having a lot of so much taken away. So I just feel that, with my children, unless you are in accelerated courses, our education is not what it used to be. And so many children are getting left behind, and so much funds are getting taken away, and they're falling through the cracks. So, but there was so much opportunity. And I remember when I was in junior high and I was an aide for special needs, and so much, in office aid and everything. And there were so many programs that I couldn't believe that we just had in public schools. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is just, I couldn't believe that we had so much of this just, given. And I was like, I couldn't believe this. I thought you'd have to go someplace, a special school or a special system or whatever, and that the funds were so readily. But now that's taken away so much. So,
and I think you bring a really important balance to the conversation, and it's something that we're very much aware of, is that we're not here to say that the education system and structures are absolutely horrendous for every single person who walks through a school door, because that's not the reality. And the majority of students are going to do pretty well. They're going to do well enough that they'll build a career and stuff like that. So it's great that you're able to talk about your experience being a lot more positive than maybe some of the rest of us. So because we need to have that balance in the conversation. And I think when we talk about play and we talk about assistive technology, we're not saying it from the perspective of what's happening right now is wrong. What we're talking about is going, how can we utilize the knowledge and information that we have now to support the education so that it is more inclusive of those who maybe have struggled in the past. And Lisa F., I'm going to come to you. Like, you have kind of mentioned how you weren't the typical student growing up, but you've built a career. And as a parent of two very different types of children, we'll say, with learning styles, what's been your experience? Has it been different for both of your kids in terms of the opportunities that have been made available to them, where you talked about where your eldest child was very academic and the school system worked really well, whereas your younger child, she still got the work done, but she just learned in a very different way. But even with the difference between those two, were there opportunities that were available to one, not to the other, or did it seem to be quite similar across the board?
Oh, that's such a complicated question.
I know. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Al. No, well, first of all, I'm going to take 2 seconds to touch on what Tana was talking about in terms of kind of going back to my own education when I was my kid's age. I grew up with two parents who were teachers. My mom taught English, my dad taught math. So I grew up in a household where there was a lot of pressure to be that, round peg, round hole student. And I just wasn't. And I can remember like working with my dad on math and just him being so frustrated with me because I didn't learn the way that he knew how to teach, sorry. And it was so challenging. And somewhere around 7th grade, 8th grade, I had to take an art class. And I was really nervous about this. Like, I'm not an art person. I don't know how to be artistic. I don't know how to do this. And I had this amazing teacher who showed us not just how to draw, but showed us how with creativity, it really all comes back to perspective and how you view the world and how you even view the object in front of you, the way that you see it, the shadows, the light, the things like that. And that stayed with me. And I ended up taking every single art class available to me through school. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I felt so at home. And I went on to study art. later on in college, and then I came full back around to more of the technology and the math, side of things. So anyway, I have a huge place in my heart for that kind of play or hands-on style learning. And I think when I look at my girls, my oldest daughter is very much like my husband, and also probably like would have been my dad's perfect student, where she does learn in that way of like sitting down and just piecing it out. I can remember times where we would get pennies out or try to, come up with some game or way to teach her certain math things, but she picked things up quickly in a traditional way. With my youngest daughter, it really does come down to that play style learning or that hands-on learning. And for her, she has to, it's the, what is it, the watch one, do one, teach one. She has to watch, she has to take it all in, and then try it out herself, and then maybe show someone else how to do it. And that's how she solidifies things in her own mind. And my kids, interestingly enough, where I live, we have our town is divided. So we have two school districts. So my oldest daughter went through one school district, and my youngest daughter is going through another. And the way that they teach is very different. And also, my kids are 7 years apart. So a lot has changed. What I will say with my youngest one is there is more focus on not necessarily forcing kids into that box. So there's more, it's not perfect, but there's more acceptance for, hey, I can't sit still, I need to get up and I need to move. Or, having the kids stand up and physically do something, move their bodies, engage in something educational while they're moving around the room once an hour, just to help them maintain that focus and to kind of incorporate more for the kiddos like my youngest that don't learn in the traditional way. They need different opportunities. So no, I like what I feel about this. Sometimes it varies from week to week, but I do appreciate the evolution, I think, for my youngest daughter, in that they're not forcing her to like sit in your desk, be quiet, or no, you have to raise your hand, you have to answer, or you have to stand up and speak when she has selective mutism, when she has a struggle with that public speaking, or even just, speaking up to a teacher. So having some creative ways to move around that has been very beneficial for her. And it helps her find her confidence. And that's the thing I think as a parent I worry about the most is like, she's going to be okay. And she gets out into the world, she's going to be okay. But as we're teaching her, like, you don't want to see her lose who she is, herself, her confidence, because she's being pushed through a process that doesn't fit for her.
Yeah, and that is the kind of worry. And it's funny, like in all the times I speak with parents and work with parents and young people, the overriding thing is I want my kids to be okay. I trust that the education will be fine, and that side of things, they'll get a job, they'll have a career, they'll do whatever. That's going to be okay. I just want them to be confident within themselves, that they can be true to themselves and live a happier life, which is so important. And Lisa G, I'm going to come to you because, like yourself and Fiona, you're working in the school system, and then what happened? Like, how did SnugsHQ.com come about? And tell us a bit about the
Yeah,
background
so
and what it's developed into.
okay. So I really interesting there what Lisa F was saying. I think that children should be assessed on their learning styles. I think because I really struggled massively in school. I wasn't academic, and like that, I had a father who was academic and couldn't understand how I couldn't learn and I couldn't pick things up. I have a younger sister who was incredibly intelligent. Academically, she thrived in school and I did not. So I always had a feeling that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't able. And I suppose when I was younger, I was put into remedial class, they called it. I don't know, Alan, you probably remember that. There was some remedial class, and I would go for some learning. Spelling and reading wasn't my strong point at all. And as I went through school, I felt that even more. And I suppose what Tana was saying, creativity, the kind of that wasn't there either. I loved music. I'm quite musical. I went on and studied music, but I wasn't. It was, yeah, my parents were kind of encouraged me towards it, but in terms of them recognizing that I was definitely more creative, and fostering that. I suppose that wasn't there. And it's only now as I got older that I realized that that is certainly one of my strengths. But where SnugsHQ came from, I suppose, having worked in the sector for a long time, having worked in parent support with families, and then going back when my own child, my eldest daughter, is the very same. So she's diagnosed dyslexic, and a few other things we're working through as well. And having gone through that process with her, I just always wanted her to know that she was incredibly intelligent, no matter what the scorecard was saying, or, you know, I'm sitting in her creation station, we call it. So that's a little attic room above her bedroom, and she has her sewing machine, and she has her wool, and she has her drawing, and she has all her pictures on the wall here. So that she knows that, you know, it's not all about kind of the academics and that. But I suppose I went back then a few years ago, post-COVID, and studied therapeutic play, because that was something I was incredibly interested in, as well with my work with children with additional needs. I found that play bit was just huge. I was a play school teacher for a long time. That's how I started my career way back when I was 19, 20. And I you can see the benefits. Like it enhances cognitive development, speech and language development, social development, you know, lowers cortisol, all those amazing things from just such simple actions. And it's so many benefits. But yeah, I went back to study therapeutic play, and from there myself and Fiona got chatting. Obviously Fiona is super passionate about how do we help children feel better in their own skin, how do we give them confidence, resilience, and all those tools they need to thrive, really, regardless of kind of learning styles and all that. And we went back and we started to run therapeutic play camps and workshops. And so we love doing that. They were typically for kiddies who weren't comfortable in the bigger camps, you know, your busier camps, maybe your sports camps, and kids who needed a little bit more hand holding as such. And we would start every day with a storybook that I would kind of hand pick. I would have planned beforehand, and myself and Fiona would have gone through it. And then obviously the therapeutic practice would be you kind of do an activity based around that learning. So, you know, you're reading, you're doing, you're learning, you're talking about it. So there's lots of different things. Like, for example, one of our activities was our tree. So, and you talk about the branches of support and stuff, and who in your life is there to support you. You know, we're talking about strengths. We're not talking about kind of what I don't have. You're talking about what I do have. Let's build on the strengths and the positive things that you do have. And then we do some planting. So we get our soil and we plant up our pots and we put in our flower seeds. And, you know, we go through how do we care for a plant. It's the same thing we care for. That's how we care for a child. That's how we care for ourselves. We have to be in the right environment. We have to feed it the right food. We have to put it in the right, you know, give it light. You have to, we used to say you have to talk to your plant and sing to your plant, you know. Yeah, talk to your plant just to make a bit of fun out of it. So then it just completely naturally evolved into, we were sitting in Fiona's kitchen one day and we kind of thought, we really love this. We were just so passionate about it. We kind of felt, to me, Fiona, we were so like,
they were, a lot of them came in with their teddies, didn't they? And they were kind of talking to us through their teddy bears, because they found it comforting to kind of express themselves and maybe their emotions by, if they didn't want to talk straight to you, they might say it through the teddy bear. So that kind of gave us the idea about the story and then the teddy to have that connection. So it kind of just scrolled from there, didn't it?
Yeah, evolved. Yeah, like I had a little puppet, and I'd say, you know, some of the kiddies would be a bit quieter, and sure, like I've no shame, you know, so I'm like, oh my, you know, getting into it, I love it, you know, be singing songs, good morning, as soon as they walk in the door. So I kind of say, you can have fun here, you can be a bit silly, it's absolutely fine. And it's just a bit of fun. And they come in for the teddy, and they wouldn't say, I'd say, and who are you? And who did you bring with you? You know, and who's the child you brought with you today? And they kind of start talking to you through their teddy bear then. And so that's, you know, we kind of wanted to, and when additional needs, oftentimes we'd have to kind of look for a social story that would be targeted towards a behavior that we were trying to kind of deal with at that moment and stuff. And that sometimes would be easier. We do it through a story, side by side learning again. You're not, you know, you're kind of that type of thing. So so we said, look, let's write a storybook. We knew we wanted our first storybook to have a giraffe in it, because the giraffes are believed to be the kindest of all animals.
Biggest heart.
Didn't know that.
Biggest heart. Yeah.
Long neck, so that they can see everybody's perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. So that's Jimbo behind Lisa. You can see him.
Yeah. So what is
Just
the name
gonna
of the book?
say,
See him kind of behind us. This is him now. This is Jimbo the
He's
giraffe.
so
Yeah.
cute.
So you can see his spots are all different as well. He is cute, yeah. You can see his spots are different. That was a big thing for us as well, that, you know, it's supposed, the story is called Different is Magic, and we wanted to really embrace that we're all different in some way, shape, or form. Even if it feels small, you know, we're still unique, and that's something that we should embrace. You know, we all come from different backgrounds, we all have different life experiences, we all have different life setups and stuff, different abilities and struggles and challenges. So I suppose to represent that, we wanted them to have a different skin pattern there. You can see our colors there, our brand pattern. We have our pinks and our yellow for positivity, our pink for kind of kindness and calmness, and green for grounding and that. Yeah, so that's how that.
We wanted the book to be kind of the tool to help the parents through. So after you read the story, like at the end, we have some guided questions. So that was kind of the difference we're hoping between it, is that it allows parents to open up that conversation if they need to have a chat about any of those kind of differences that they might want to talk about. And you might only even open up one question or touch on one question every now and again, but it's just having the guided questions at the end to help that, because sometimes parents aren't really sure what way to approach it, or they might be like, oh God, I don't want to talk about that now, it's kind of, you know, it's near bedtime, and but it's just giving them those little extra tools and maybe resources to help them through.
I think when Lisa was telling me first about the book, and what I loved about it was that particular thing, that, you know, as parents, we all can worry sometimes about, you know, not putting what we think onto our children if that might not be true, or, you know, worrying about how am I going to handle this conversation if something big comes up. And I loved that you guys gave those suggestions of how to have that conversation, because it's so important. Parents can sometimes feel very can lack the confidence to kind of confront things, but by having things like this book, they can do it in a way that is proven, for one, because you guys are doing it, and it's based on research, and it's based on, you know, your experience as well. But at the same time, they and their children can carry on the story, carry on the conversation, and then you never know where those avenues are going to spread to as things move forward as well. So I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to pick up a copy. I have no small children, but just for myself.
Oh, sure, look, anyone would benefit from this book.
There you go.
No, and it is
good plug.
That's it. And that's what we were saying earlier, like play doesn't come naturally to everybody, and we grow out of it. You know, somewhere along the way, we don't feel comfortable doing that. And it's not that everybody wants to get down on the mat. And I've talked to so many people before, and parents and friends, and they're like, I just don't like playing. I don't like getting down and playing Barbies and playing whatever. I just don't like doing it. And that's okay. It's about finding things that you do like to do, that will build connection, that will give you the opportunities to talk to your children around their remote, but just building that connection, that one-to-one time. And it looks different for everybody, but that you're kind of prioritizing it. You know, you're saying, okay, I'm going to sit down in the evening, I'm going to read a storybook, and we're going to have a chat for half an hour. And I'm going to be open to what you have to say. I'm not going to say, no, that's not right, or I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to say, yeah, that's really interesting. You know, thank you for sharing that with me. So yeah, so we are really proud of it. You know, we're really passionate about it, and we can't wait to see how many other products we can bring out.
We had a nice resource actually kind of during April. We did April Connections, but I just thought it was quite simple. Now, it wasn't that you got to every single one, and there's no pressure on it, but you know, the days in April, we just created like simple little things that you can do to build connection with your child. And it started from 1 minute, a 1 minute connection, to anything up to an hour, depending on what you felt might fit in your day or your week. And like, one is just as simple as, and my daughter loved it, it was just like a hug for a minute, and you have to say back and forth to each other what you love about each other. And it was just, I love your hair, I love your smell, I love your this, and she'd say the next day, can we do that again? And it was just really, really simple. Or, you know, like you said, Lisa, people not wanting to, or feeling like they can't do the full get down and play, like a little thing, reading the story and then saying, will you make up the ending? Tell me what you think might happen. Let's pretend it's your book, and what you're getting their creative mind thinking. And it's very simple. That can be the last 4 or 5 minutes before bed. It doesn't have to be you know, I sit down for an hour and I have to play Barbies, because that mightn't be everybody's cup of tea, but it's just giving little ideas as well as to how you can add in one or two things during your day to build that connection.
It's
and
One
it's
of the
quality in the connection.
yeah.
Sorry.
I gotta jump in. One of the best suggestions Al made to me with engaging with my daughters, this is years ago now, was the notebook. So, like, writing notes to them before I left for work in the morning, and they come home from school and write notes back. And, my youngest daughter, absolutely not a hugger, like not her thing at all. No hugs, like anything too personal. And she's like, she's out too much.
Yeah,
But she brings up the notebook all the time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
she's like, hey, you're going to be gone for a little while. Can we do the notebook? Like,
Mhm.
she's 15. She's going to be 16 here in another month. And she still brings up the notebook. And I absolutely love that. Like, it's just those little things
Yeah,
that give you a way to connect. Yeah. It's so
yeah,
important.
so nice.
Yeah, they're so
And
powerful.
free. Do you
Yeah,
know, that
yeah,
costs nothing.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a bit of
The price
time.
of a
It's
notebook.
fantastic. Yeah.
And Olive, like, I'm going to bring you in because, we've had many conversations about why adults lose that sense of play. Um, from your experience, what do you think impacts on that?
I think there's lots of things that do. I mean, I think the first thing probably is, did the adults play when they were little? And so is it? And I've got one of my practitioners is actually now teaching grandparents, and with grandparents, they probably really didn't play like that in their day, and so it's much harder for them to get down on the floor and play. Um, so that's one thing. We also have research about creativity and how very small children are very, very creative. And as we go through life, we lose creativity. And it's like 98% of 4-year-olds are creative geniuses. And you can tell that. Just give them a new toy, like the one I was telling you about earlier, and they'll work it out for themselves. Whereas by the time you get to being an adult, a lot of people aren't creative geniuses. And I mean, I spent my life working in the field of visual thinkers and how they can use their visual skills for learning. And I find that there's many, many adults who will say to me, I can't possibly visualize anything. And so they've lost it. But we also know that when we talk to people about their visual skills, they can quite often get them back again. So that's really interesting. And I think that the things like that, they just find really hard. Um, that's my view of it. And of course, a number of the teachers that we have in schools come into the same category, that they've just not been used to getting down and playing. The early years are probably much better at that.
Yeah. I remember my friends. So when I was working in youth projects and stuff like that, they would say to me, "Sure, you just play pool and you like kick a football and you play cards and you play games all day." And I would say to them, "That's what it looks like on the outside, but actually, what
Yeah,
I'm doing is I'm building a relationship, because if you sit a young person down and go, tell me about your problems, they're going to go, no
no,
fucking way am
yeah,
I telling you about any of my
Yeah.
problems, right? But if you bake, if you kick a ball around, if you play pool, if you go for a drive in the car, it is amazing how they will just start to talk, because the focus isn't on them. So I'd always say to my friends who'd be slagging me off would be, the activity is just the vehicle to build that connection and relationship with the young person that allows you then to move into the space of discussing the more challenging, difficult conversations. And what you guys have produced is exactly that same thing.
Yeah.
The book is the
That's 100%.
vehicle for parents and children to be able to connect, which is absolutely fantastic, because we can worry about it. And Jason, I want to come to you for a second, because going back to you and your son, like, I'm sure the challenges you guys have experienced, even when he was much younger, well, you guys had to try different avenues and routes to try and engage him. I'm sure. Oh, he's gone. He dropped, unfortunately, his that bloody internet over there. I'm telling you, I was giving out to him during the week saying, you need to sort your internet out. But
Needs
he
a
will come back.
hotspot.
No, he doesn't. He needs some wired connection. That's what he needs. But yeah, so I'm sure for any parent like Jay Sean who has a child who's at probably a more challenging level of having to interact, it must be really, really difficult, because you can probably feel quite alone because you're the one who's dealing with the child in that moment. And you don't have time to be sitting around going, let's look on Instagram or let's look up on ChatGPT. How can I talk to my child who's got autism? You're just going, how do I do something to make my child feel okay? And it's such a scary place and challenging place for parents to be in. So yeah, it's amazing once we build those connections and find those avenues to communicate with our kids. And like, at least I'm delighted you brought up the notebook, because it's something I say to every parent. So as we
Love the
grow,
notebook.
yeah. So where that
Actually
came
did it
from?
this morning.
Did you?
Yeah,
That's
because we were
amazing.
leaving early for a meeting, and I knew they'd be getting up. So yeah, and my mom used to do it to me, and she'd leave a note and, hey Fee, how's everything? Have a great day. And it was always, love mom, kiss, kiss, kiss. So yeah, it was lovely. And even when I borrowed her car one time, I still remember I was only young, was going driving into Galway, and she wrote a little note in the car, and it was like, gave this for your petrol, or have a great trip, and all these lovely things about along the way, this would be here. And I just kept it in the car. I always just kept it. I thought it was just a lovely thing. It was really, really nice, just that little connection. And it was
special.
very simple. Yeah.
And they have so much power, those things. They really do.
Or lunchbox, sometimes I put it in
Yeah.
a
I do
little
that too,
note
yeah.
in the kids' lunchbox. So
Yeah.
I used to draw pictures on my kids' napkins in the lunch boxes. For
Oh, that's
years, I did that up until they were like, Mom, you got to stop.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're in high
My
school now,
son
you got to stop. But I
My
love
son
it. That's
asked me
the
to
stuff.
stop that.
Yeah. They do get to a point
Yeah,
where
no,
they're like,
my 9-year-old son recently said, don't do that again.
yeah.
He was
You
opening the
do it as long
lunchbox
as you
and the
can get
friends
away
are
with
seeing his
it.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah. I where I came across it first, so was back, oh Jesus, probably 25 years ago. I remember watching a Channel 4 documentary, and they were talking about the challenges for parents. So in it, they had a mother and a daughter. The daughter was 16, and it was like your worst case scenario. So the daughter was drinking, taking drugs, having unprotected sex, not going to school, beating the mother up, and it was like really, really severe situation. But what had happened was, no matter what the mother said, as soon as the daughter heard the voice, she'd be like, "Rah," even if the mother was saying, I love you, because she had attached the emotion, a negative emotion, to something that the mother was saying to her, no matter what it was. So what they did was they got them to agree to use a notebook where they would talk about their feelings, but they would talk about it in a way where it was from the I perspective. So it wasn't, you've done this wrong, you've done that wrong, you've done the other. So they both agreed to do it. So the mum wrote something along the lines of, I love you so much. I don't want to have any more arguments with you. I really want to help, but I don't know what to do. But I want us to be okay. And she closed the notebook, left it on the kitchen table, and said to her daughter, I've written in the notebook, you can reply if you want. So the daughter picked it up, and she burst into tears. And she replied in the notebook, Mom, I feel completely out of control. I don't want to fight anymore either. I need your help, but I don't know what to do. And they conversed back and forth like that for a few weeks. And well, being a documentary, they got to the end of the documentary and she was back in school, not hanging around with the same friends. There was no violence, no nothing. So that was good. Now, I'm sure they had the normal up and down challenges of a normal mother-daughter, relationship. But at the time, I was, I probably still am, I worked a lot, and I remember thinking at times with my own kids when they were smaller, going, I'd come in and go, how's your day? And they go, fine. How's your day, Dad? Yeah, it was grand. That was it. And then I'd be tucking them in at night time, and I'd be 2 steps away from opening the door to go get me cup of tea, and I'd get something happened in school today, and I'd be okay, and I'd turn back around, right?
Yeah.
So I went, right, well, I know there's so much more going on in their days, but we don't have the space. They don't have the headspace before bedtime to be thinking about the
Yeah.
day and talking about the day and getting them wound up again. So I decided to get them both a notebook. And in the notebook, they could write about their day. And what I would do is I'd take the notebook down at nighttime, read it, I'd acknowledge what they'd said. So it could be, I got in trouble today in school. Blah, blah. So sorry to hear you got in trouble, but I'm glad you got it sorted out. And then I talk a bit about my day. Now, given the work that I was doing at the time, like I was working with teenagers who were taking drugs and breaking the law, I wasn't going, well, today I was down in the Garda station and I had to talk to the police so that they wouldn't send this kid off to jail. But I talk about some of the general things. And what I found was there was a twofold benefit. One, it gave us a way of communicating without it having to be verbal all the time. And two, which was way more important, was that they were able to say, I got in trouble in school today. Then I went out at break time and played with my friends. Then I came home, did my homework and went off to play football. And then I'm, here I am in bed. So they got to learn that they processed the fact that when something bad happened during the day, it didn't mean the day was ruined.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to see that actually I can look at that and go, one event. And if we look at most things that go wrong for us in inverted commas on a day-to-day basis, they usually are like seconds worth of stuff. So they were able to process things for themselves. And it meant that there wasn't that something happened in school today as often. And there was no pressure on the girls to have to write. If they didn't want to write, that was absolutely okay. Now, what I will say to any parent who might be going, that's a really good idea, I'm going to introduce that to my kids, is be ready in case you have a writer. Because you might be sitting downstairs with half an hour before you go to bed and there's 5 pages and you're going, oh, sweet Jesus.
My kids make fun of me for being the writer. They're like, oh, you did not need to write a novel about your day. And this happened, and this happened. But being the outgoing one. But like the notebook is so cool because it also gives, it gives them a place to share. It gives them a safe place to share. And I think sometimes, especially with young people, it's so hard for them at times, regardless of who they are or how they're wired, to verbalize some of the hard things that are happening. And particularly for the kids who like, and my daughter, my youngest daughter, who struggles a little bit with expressing her emotions or her feelings, or she's definitely the, hey, how was your day? Great, fine. But if you give her the pencil, you get a whole different story, and it gives her the safety to be able to express that, and it helps you to build that connection with them, and it is such a worthwhile tool. Like it's really truly a wonderful tool, and it fits for all. It fits for everybody.
Yeah, you can bring it right back. Like, so if you've got a child who can't write, well, they can draw pictures about their day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you can draw pictures, and that reintroduces the play. And like I'll finish off on this one. Like, and I have a coaching client who won't mind me telling this story, but he works in the corporate environment, and we were working on. He was looking at changing jobs a few years ago, and he was, I really want to get this job in this place, and he was like, I've got to get it right, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, and this guy is so creative outside of work. Like he's so he paints, he writes, he plays music. Like he's so creative. And we were talking through things. And I said, why don't you just be you? So when you have the interview, talk about you, like the things that make you, because like, okay, you might not give the same stock answers as everybody else, but you're definitely going to stand out. And whether you get the job or not, that's okay. You want the job, but just by being you, that means you're setting a bar and an expectation level that you can actually achieve because you're just being you. So he went into the interview and they said, "Oh, so tell us about your background." And he said, "Right, well, my favorite band is this, and there's one of their posters on my wall. And I love going playing basketball with my kids, and I spend my time playing guitar and painting and stuff. Here's some of the paintings I've done." And he said they were like, "What?" And they were like, "That's amazing." Because they saw beyond the stock answers that they were getting from everybody else. And he ended up getting the job. And one of the things as he was starting the job, they said it to him. They were like, that was the difference. We saw you, and then you were able to connect the dots between you and your skill base and that creativity and what you could do in the role for us. And like, he's been working there for a few years, and every so often we'll reconnect with, if he's feeling a bit under pressure, because it's a very high pressure job, it's like, just be you. You are an artist first and foremost, so be the artist. And like, that's brought him friction in the job, but ultimately that company has laid off thousands of people and he keeps getting promoted. So, and it's not just saying just go in and go, well, I like drinking wine and smoking fags like that. It's not that kind of stuff. But
watch Netflix.
Being your authentic self does make a difference, and you do stand out. And what we don't want to be doing is crushing our children's creativity. We don't want to be crushing who they are, their essence. Encourage it within reason and show them that their skills have an opportunity. There is a market for those skills, right? I'm not going to go on a really, really big, deep rant, but we are coming up on the hour.
Don't force them to fit that little tiny expectation. There is room for so many things. Sorry, I'll finish the rant.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. Right, we're going to wrap this up because we've taken up enough of the SnugsHQ team's time. But I just want to say, Lisa, G, and Fiona, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about SnugsHQ and about the book, but also your backgrounds and what you've brought. Where can people grab a copy?
Yeah, you can go to SnugsHQ.com is our website, or you can follow us on Instagram. Want to give the handle at least?
Yeah, that's snugz.ie. So snugz.ie. Follow us there. You can go online. We're working on our retail partnerships at the minute. We're in all the libraries in Dublin. If you're around Dublin, you can go in there and have a little look. But yeah, look, keep an eye on the page and the Instagram page, and you'll know what we're doing and where we are and where we're stopped. But yeah, I'd say 100%. Yeah. And that's it. Embrace uniqueness, embrace creativity, all those things. And when it comes to play, just give it a go. You'll find your way. You'll find the thing that you don't feel uncomfortable doing.
You're absolutely right. I've had many a time where I've had lovely eyeliner and fantastic nails, but you know what?
Yeah.
Those are the things that kind of pop up again and again and just kind of remind me in those moments where I think, Jesus, have I lost the connection with my kids now because they're so much older? Kind of go, no, do you know what? We've had so much fun the whole way along and our connections are just different. But maybe there is something there just to reintroduce a bit of play with my older kids. They might go, I might go home and they might punch me in the face and no chance.
Still have them do your eyeliner.
Absolutely. My eyeliner is very, very important to me.
Eyeliner.
But Lisa and Fiona, thank you so much for joining us. And people, please do follow and support Snugz.ie.
I want to add something.
Yes, Tana, please do.
I do want to add something. My son, he's 33, and I used to read a lot to my children when they were younger. And he bought a book this weekend that I read to him when they were younger. So it does work. Those connections that are made. So, if people read your book to them, to their children now, it does stay, that connection that we're talking about. It does, it's a foundation.
Yeah, it lasts.
It lasts. Yeah. So like I said, my 33-year-old, he bought it this weekend because he was like, Mother, look at this. Do you remember this? And he texted me and he said that. I was like, oh, and then, he bought it.
Magic memory for him.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, did you buy? He was like, well, yeah, of course. And I was like, oh, so there you go.
Happy memories.
It's why nostalgia comes back around. It's so important because it just triggers lovely emotions, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
Nostalgia is everything. Al, you're going to add the links to the all the social medias and stuff like that.
Absolutely. We'll tag the living daylights out of you guys. So thanks so much. Olive, Jay, Tana, Lisa, thank you so much as well for your contributions. It's been great to have episode 002 in the bag, and we'll be back again next week at the same time, live on YouTube. Please do subscribe and give us a rating even if you think we're rubbish. And also, if you go on to your podcast channel, please subscribe because it does make a difference and help us spread the word. Okay, we'll be back next week with more future-proof knowledge. Look after yourselves and take care.
Thanks, Fiona and Lisa.
Bye. Thank